Okay. So, Jackie, we're live.
We're
So
live.
we can start. Yeah, we can start. I'm going to mute myself here and give you the stage.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Jacqueline Saback. I'm the regional manager now in Bahia. Now we're part of São Paulo and Santa Catarina team, and it's a great honor to be here online doing my very first webinar. Um I had promised myself in a New Year's resolution that I would do something different, but I wasn't expecting to be so soon. Let's put it like this. So, my very warm hello to everybody, and I hope you enjoy this talk. I'm not a very formal person, so bear with me. And here I am, challenged by Marcelo Dalpino, and let's see if this is going to work. I hope you really enjoy and make your own decisions on how, whether to be or not to be a speaking examiner. Okay, so I'm gonna open my presentation and see how this goes. Okay, so the topic of this talk in the 7th Cultura Inglesa Teachers Colloquium is becoming a Cambridge speaking examiner. I don't know to what extent you know a little bit about Cambridge, so I'm going to start talking to you about Cambridge Assessment English. It's part of University of Cambridge, and it's been on the road for more than 100 years. So they do know a lot about designing Cambridge exams, right? So what happens is people in the world, they learn English for various reasons. And why not prove that they know? One thing is being able to speak the language. Other thing is to prove that you can speak the language, right? So because the exams are recognized and are so famous around the world, these certifications add a lot of value to their resumes. Tests vary from young learners up to special purposes. So they have tests for children from 8 to 9 years old until us teachers, and business English for executives, and etc. These tests are revised and updated, so they're not static. A couple of years ago, Carlos Alberto Costa visited us here in Salvador, and we had a chance of looking into CAT and PET and have our own voice based on our English classes, right? And helping them with our what we felt about these exams. As you all might know, they cover the 4 skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And they try to bring into the tests real-life communication skills so that they reflect as close as possible this communicative aspect. They're accepted and valued worldwide. So anywhere you go, if you have a Cambridge exam certification, they will know exactly what you can do with the language, right? Being from level A1 to C2, from key English test to the proficiency. And it causes a very, very strong impact on learning and teaching as far as our experience goes here in Salvador. Because it makes the students have a target. So if you have a target, you have to study more, you have to be exposed to different aspects in class so that you can reach that level. And it gives the idea that, okay, I got the key English test, now I'm going to go for the PET. It adds this target to our lessons. As for teachers, you have to keep updated, up to date, and be able to provide techniques and knowledge in class so that students will be successful in taking the Cambridge Assessment English. Speaking examiners. So what is our main role? To assess candidates' speaking performance, obviously, and to understand what the Cambridge Assessment English is all about. So there's this common European framework where University of Cambridge, through the Cambridge Assessment Department, they are the ones who design tests for each of the levels. from key English tests up to the proficiency, from A1 to C2. And it's become so important that editors and book writers, they have to follow the guidelines designed by Cambridge, designed by the Common European Framework, and based on the format that Cambridge offers to accommodate what we have to teach in our own classes. So it has to do with what we do in class, particularly Cultura Inglesa, who represents Cambridge, who's been representing for a long, long time. Okay. What professional background do you need? You've got to have a language teaching qualification. Nowadays, we have famous CELTAs and DELTAs. My generation was from a group of teachers who had the COTI. You have to have substantial, relevant recent teaching experience. It's easier for teachers who are still teaching. You can understand better students so that you can evaluate, how can I say this? You can evaluate more confidently, right? So having the teaching qualification and experience, it's what is needed from you as a professional. English language competencies. So what levels do you need to have? What level do you need to have so that you can test? You can be an English, you can be a speaking examiner. You've got to be 2 levels above the level that you're going to assess. For example, if you're going to test a CAT candidate, you have to have the minimum of FCE. If you're going to test FCE, you've got to have the minimum of CPE. So it's always 2 levels higher. For the higher exams, like CAE and CPE and the business English exams, the speaking examiner has to have a C2 level to be proficient in English. And to examine CPE, you have to be the creme de la creme and have a CPE with the band A. It's got to be very, very good to be able to examine CPE candidates. Clear diction, including intelligibility outside the region and country where examining takes place. So you have to be understood. You have to have good English in order to be a speaking examiner anywhere in the world. Because once you become a Cambridge examiner, you can do this in any place. You can work in Brazil. If you're transferred somewhere else, you're still going to be examiner as far as you keep with the retraining. So it's a very good investment. And you have to be able to assess the accuracy and acceptability and appropriateness of spoken English. So you do have to understand language inside out to become a Cambridge examiner. So obviously depending to each level, right? If you are going to be assessing a CAT level, for example, you have to be a very, very good, at least B2 level. If you have any questions, please ask, and then we're going to continue, okay? Professional attributes and interpersonal skills, right? Obviously, you have to be very responsible. Cambridge assessment takes very seriously the business of testing, and particularly people involved in testing. So there are deadlines that you have to be met, and when you're running the test, when you're applying the test, there's all the paperwork that you have to do. So it's not only the eye on the pedagogical part of the assessment, but also in the administrative part of it. So there's a protocol where you have to follow while you're testing, so that in the end you have your forms, the forms filled out appropriately. Following guidance and feedback, it's also very, very important, because you've got a script to follow in all ways that you can imagine. From the moment that you start getting dressed at home to go to school, to do the test, to run the test, until the end of the test. So you do have to follow the scales. the scales are they're not very detailed, but they're when you're trained, you understand the scale. And the difficult part for me there is when you have to decide either if a student is a 2.5 or a 3.5 or a 3 or a 4, because you have got elements from one and elements from the other. So accepting the scale the way it is, the guidance the way it is a big issue. And be available to attend annual certification of procedure meetings. So if you are going to become a speaking examiner, it means that there is a lot of commitment to it. It's not just being an examiner and, you know, your manager inviting you to come and you sit in and run the test. There are training sessions and retraining sessions and a platform designed by Cambridge where you are tested, watching these little videos with parts of the test. And you do have to do that in order to continue with your ID. I don't know if I'm being very clear here. So you do have to attend the certification and of procedure meetings so that you can validate your ID every year. So it's not a one-off thing, you know, that you do it and you have your ID forever. You have to retain every year. Professional attributes and interpersonal skills. Be available to examine whenever recruited. So you know that Cambridge exams, they have prefixed dates, and you have dates for each and every exam, right? So there are specific dates to run the CAT, key and PET for the FCE, for the CAE, for CPE. They even decide when for us to do it, if it's going to be in the morning, in the afternoon, before a certain time, and after a certain time. For CAT and PET particularly, it has to be one in the morning, one in the afternoon. All the others are in the morning. There are some topics here that I think it's easy for us to follow, like dress appropriately, right? So being simple is always better. And being sensitive to local and cultural norms. This item is there because sometimes you may be a Cambridge examiner here, but you might have to examine elsewhere. And then you have to know what the norms of each place is so that you can follow and not do anything wrong. Be discreet and keep it confidential. So sometimes we have this urge to say, well done, very good. You cannot do that. You have to be very discreet and run the test, and that's it. Have access, this is an observation, have access to a PC and laptop with broadband for online certificate. Remember I mentioned Fronter. For that platform, so every semester when you do the training once a year, and every year you have to assess Fronter and do this online certification. So you do need to have that so you can be in a silent place like I'm in now, right? Talking to you guys with no interruption, because once you start, you have to go all the way through. So doing this at school, sometimes if you don't have a quiet place to be isolated and concentrated and focused, it's not a very good idea. Okay, so this is, I thought it would be good to show you so you would understand the process to become a speaking examiner. Let me make this bigger. I don't know if you can see. Is it okay, Eva?
It's a little bit small, yeah, but
Small.
if you can zoom in, it's fine.
Better? Is it better? Okay.
Yes.
So center recruits prospective speaking examiner. Probably your coordinator, your branch manager will invite you to become a Cambridge examiner. because you have the knack for it, or because you are very dedicated and she trusts you, so she will recruit you. Then the center team leader, TL, Cambridge loves anagrams. The center team leader checks the speaking examiner meets the minimum requirements, the ones that we talked before, okay, about the language certification, competency in terms of language speaking, what kind of, if you have all the requirements to become a speaking examiner. Then the center carries out employment checks. This in the case that you are an external speaking examiner and you want to, and we need you somewhere, and they have to have all the paperwork done so that you can continue. Yeah, always respecting local law and check references and etc. So the team leader conducts an interview. So you maybe because you are all Cultura Inglesa, São Paulo and Santa Catarina teachers, you won't need to go through this part of this process here because you're already there, and our coordinators already know you. Your coordinators already know you. So speaking examiner completes induction online. So apart from the training that you have face-to-face with the team leader, you also have an induction online with details. Then you have the face-to-face one, which is the speaking examiner trained by the team leader and collects signed declarations from the speaking examiners who haven't already done it before. So in this training moment there, we distribute scales, and the scales will cover topics like, for example, for FCE, grammar and vocabulary, and you discuss what is involved in that. For example, grammar and vocabulary, we're going to look into control, range, and appropriacy. Discourse management, extent, relevance, coherence, and cohesion. We're going to look into pronunciation, intonation, stress, individual sounds, interactive communication, initiating, responding, and development. And look into each and every of these topics. We are going to try to understand, we have to understand what a 1 means and what a 5 means, what's in between. So we look into that, and we watch videos and videos and videos, and we give grades, right? We allocate grades, and we discuss why we've given that and why we've given that grade, and what did Cambridge give, and what is the discrepancy between and the other. And they allowed when they combine these grades, right? Okay, from 1 to 5. And you do it as many times as the team leader think that it's needed for the group to really understand and master this speaking assessment scale. So there is the specific one that we call the analytical, and there is the one that we call the global. Usually the person who is the interlocutor is the one who's going to award the global. And the assessor, the one that is doing the hard work, I would say, is the one who's going to be giving the details with the analytical scale. After that, we might talk a little bit about this later on, okay? A couple of slides on. After that, the team leader submits these nominations, okay, through the support site, and arrange for the form to be checked by the regional team leader. So we have kind of a pyramid there, right? Us, teachers, and then you have your coordinator recruiting you, and your team leader interviewing you and submitting that to the regional team leader, who will then send this to Cambridge to validate the process, right? So if approved, process the nomination, and then they issue an examiner ID to your center. Oh my God, what have I done here? Okay, let's move on. What do I get from the experience? Okay, this is the part that I like talking about, right? Because there's a lot of personal feelings and a lot of people around me that talk about these things. So maybe we can contribute a little bit with your decision making on becoming or not a speaking examiner. Okay? Right. So if what do you get from that? You become a more reliable oral examiner in any context, because once you go through the training and once you understand how to assess the analytical and the global scales with all the details, right? You It's like people look at you different, like you if they need a second opinion on a qualificação de nível, for example, you're the person that they will go to, because you are quite familiar with all the nuances of the scales. You develop a better understanding of the scales. If you understand Cambridge, you can understand any scale that is produced by our academic team, because of the richness of it. It improves your status. So anywhere you go, if you've got in your CV not only Cambridge exam certifications and CELTAs and DELTAs and other qualifications, they look at you as a Cambridge examiner as a person who really understands the language, understands the spoken language. So Cambridge has an international reputation for excellence, and because they are so, can I say, picky about everything, right? They are reliable. There's a lot of reliability involved, and they know that there's fairness in your judgment when assessing any speaking exam or any speaking moment in class, right? You also become more critical in understanding spoken language. So when you are in class with your own students, right, it's you're more critical to what you're listening, because you know exactly I don't know if I can say how to measure, how to place this student looking into a bigger framework that is the international exams. You have a deep understanding of what is required for your own students. Cultura Inglesa is known for preparing students for ages and ages and ages. If you know what the format of the test is, if you understand what the speaking exam is all about, the pressure that they're going to place, because if you're a very nice speaking examiner, you are under a testing situation, right? So you're much better able to prepare your student. As a Cambridge examiner myself, it's very easy to see when I'm testing students who are the ones that have been trained appropriately and who are the ones that do not have a clue of what they're supposed to do in a test, right? If you have the opportunity to look into the speaking exams, there's a lot of strategies that students have to apply that is similar to real life, right? It's similar to real life. So when we train them for these exams, we're not only training them for the actual thing, you're training them to use those strategies outside the English classroom. And it helps us planning our lessons better, right? When you have to choose the framework to use for different levels, a more controlled framework like PPP, or less controlled using a task-based learning, for example, you know exactly what to plan for that speaking moment, for that production moment that you want to happen. And you also develop students' performance. And I had a huge discussion here with a friend. He's one of my academic assistants, Dudu, and we're also talking. We're always talking about strategies, right? And we came to the conclusion that teaching this, particularly in our reality here in Salvador, is vital, because Baianos have a different. I don't know about Paulistas and people from Santa Catarina, but if we're talking about our school here, for example, the way we interact among ourselves is like we don't have a very clear strategy about turn taking, for example. People, when you're in a conversation, for example, you jump into each other words and you complete the sentence and the other one completes their sentence, and there you go. And when you think about norms of cultural norms for different cultures, and even in our Brazil, right, with my new friend Paulistas, so when they speak, I listen. When I speak, you listen. But it's very different here. It's just different. So teachers here in Cultura showing students that turn taking can be an issue if they take this characteristic that we have into the test. They're going to have problems, right? So they do. There is this mother tongue, Baiano mother tongue interference, let's say. I don't know if you might be laughing right now about this, but it's funny. It's really funny. So we do have to tell them that they have to wait, and it's general, right? It's everybody. It's not like one person or the other. It's everybody. So, and that they have to invite the person into the conversation, and not only just jump into without having some kind of interaction there. So it does develop our students' performance. And I don't know. This is a genuine question. I don't know if in other places in Brazil, like in our new school, São Paulo in Santa Catarina, I don't know if you guys have this kind of situation, for example. So if it's clear for them, if they have the awareness that in their mother tongue, there is this thing going on there in the discussions, because this is not something that we teach, isn't it? It's something that it's the way it is. No questions?
Yes, there is one question.
Good, I'm glad.
Actually, you were turn taking, and I had a question here, the Viviane, and I was here. I cannot interrupt her now. She is talking about this. If I interrupt her now, this is going to be just terrible. Or a very good example. A very good, right. Bad example. But Viviane is asking about the TL, I think the team leader. And I think there are actually two positions, right, called the TL, the local team leader and the regional team leader.
Yes.
Correct? I have to admit complete ignorance to this.
Right. So the team leader, it's usually, it can be local, and it cannot be, sometimes it isn't local. Like, so in our case, our team leader is a local one. And she's the one who plans with the branch manager, who recruits the teachers for the speaking exam when we have to do the training. Because I think you have to do it 3 months before the actual exam happen, so that we have the time for that. And you have the regional one, like in our case, we have Adelaide, that is the team leader, and we have Serginho Lins, who is the regional one, and he takes care of the northeast. So he's the one who talks to Ade and our team leader, and Ade talks to us and trains us. And she also carries out speaking exams. How do I say this? She observes us running the test with a huge checklist to see if you're doing it right. And these results goes to Serginho Lins, who sends to inspection departments and to Cambridge itself, Cambridge assessment itself. Okay? I don't know in São Paulo. I know that there is a regional leader for each region, because otherwise Brazil is too big, right? From north to south, it's enormous. So you do have people organizing this in each region. Okay, Ivan?
I guess so. Yes. We can move on. Thank you.
Okay, drawbacks. The drawbacks. Right, it is time consuming, because you do have to allocate time for Fronter, and there is a deadline for Fronter. Fronter, remember, is a platform that I said that you have to assess, and you have these videos. So you have one little one to check so that you understand the standard using the scale plus what Cambridge is awarding the students, the grade Cambridge is giving them. Then you watch another group, another pair of students, and this second pair, you're going to be applying the standard, okay, to see if you quite understood. If you need to repeat because you're not 100% sure, you have a third go with a different pair, and you do it again. And each part of this, the exam, they want you to look at something different. So one, they might ask you to look into grammar and vocabulary, right? So they kind of make it, what's the opposite abroad? The other, I can't think of the word now. So they try to make it, you focus on a specific item. The second time you observe, you might be asked to look into discourse management, for example. And then when you do the real one, it's like you do it, you click the button, and then you close your eyes to see if it was satisfactory or if you're going to have to go through the whole process again. If you have to go through the whole process again, you won't be able to do it at the same time. So you have to leave it be, and then another day, 2 or 3 days later, you try again until you get the grade they expect you to have. Okay? So these training meetings, so you have two types of training. One is the big one where you go through the whole process. It's like a whole morning, a whole afternoon, it's a day thing, right? Going through each part. And then the retraining meetings, it's when you are fully trained. You just have to have refresher meetings so that you're up to date with everything that's going on. Yeah? This is very important because every now and then Cambridge assessment is rewriting exams. I mean, well, it takes like a couple of years, but they do launch new questions, and they want to check the questions, and they want to, through these retrainings, they help us understand what is expected from each question type when they have new things coming up. It's stressful because the enormous responsibility you have to be a Cambridge exam. It's stressful. I think there are more positive things than negative things, in my opinion. But it's stressful, particularly if you are like me, like a Virginiana, a Virgan, that you want everything perfect. And if it doesn't work as you want, you kind of feel bad about it. So you want they want everything to be perfect, and you would want as well. Availability is another issue. Sometimes we are in classes teaching all day long. And to find a time where you can meet the team leader and where you can do all these things sometimes can be complicated. Availability. Once you become a Cambridge examiner, a Cambridge assessment examiner, it's not the kind of thing that you would say, oh no, I don't want to do this one. It's not something that you can choose because it means that the institution counts on you. And when we start selling these tests, it's because we know that we have people that are part of a team that will be there for us. It's very stressing for the center exam manager to know that you have all those people, and then at the end of the day, you find out that you don't have that many available for what you need at that moment. So availability is a very important issue. And responsibility, right? Being a Cambridge exam, this is something huge. It's not just anybody that can be a speaking examiner. You have to be good. You have to be selected, or you have to, when you volunteer for this, it's something that you mean it. It's not just because you want to try it out. It's because you really want to be part of this bigger scenario. And I think it goes beyond us, Cultura Inglesa, right? It's something worldwide. We are assessing people that will be enriching their curriculums, and they will be able to have better jobs. They'll be able to go to post-graduation courses abroad. So it's something huge. It's something huge.
Hi, here it's me
Okay.
again.
Hey.
Yes, Vivian is asking here a very curious question that once I read it, yeah, that's a very good question. How do you balance your responsibilities at the branch with your Cambridge Examiner responsibilities? I know that this is going to come down to the branch needs to very specific case by case answer, but in general, how do you do it? Some experience from you.
Well, the frontal part for me, it's the easiest one because you can do at home, you can do anywhere, right? So it's just finding a time that you feel like, and be careful not to leave it to the last minute because it's happened before here with us, and then the person was not very good, and then she didn't have the time to retake the test, retake the process in front her, and it was very very stressful for the person and for us because we don't have that many, right? Salvador's, according to Marcelo Dalpino, only 8% has CPE in Cultura Salvador. So the ones we have, we do need them to make time outside uh, their busy schedules to dedicate it to Frontier. As for being an examiner in school, it really depends on what your Cambridge exam manager. I think that in São Paulo it's Helena Nagano, right? And in the future she's going to take us here in Bahia too. So when she allocates dates, it's something that she has to do with the branch managers so that she knows exactly with whom she can count. Uh, Unfortunately, Cambridge, when Cambridge Assessment selects the dates, they don't customize things for us. For example, it's an international thing, so sometimes they allocate. I mean, most of the time, actually, they allocate dates that are like in the morning, and we are teaching, and then the way we find to cope with this is finding people to substitute lessons so that I need the examiners. Uh, if you decide to become examiner, you are going to be an expert. You know, not everybody will have the expertise that you will have becoming a Cambridge examiner. So it means that the whole team, it's not only a regional, the team leader, the, you know, the branch man, it's something that has to involve the whole institution, and that if needed be, you will need to be substituted so that you can make time to become wear the examiner hat. As for trainee and retrainee, I believe, well, what I do here in Salvador is what I check is which day of the week is that people are not in the classroom. So it's usually on Friday mornings here. So Friday mornings we run these training sessions, right? So we try to make it as attractive as possible with a delicious coffee break to make everybody happy. And then we break for lunch and we try to make it fun as possible. But we are very curious. The people who are involved in being the speaking examiner here in Salvador, I can speak for our branch, right? Uh, they're really curious about all these aspects that we've been discussing, yeah? About all the elements that we need to know to evaluate. And apparently the backwash effect to the classes who have people who are examiners, it's quite different from the ones that have never had the chance to be an examiner before. Even in our own oral exam, you do have speaking tests for the school, right? So even for us as teachers examining local students, not the ones that are taking the exams, I think I diverge completely from the question, but anyways, let me complete. They feel more confident. So it's just a question, Viviane, of making time with your coordinators, and I think it's a question of the local center exam manager talking to people who run the branches where you work, so that you find the right time for all this training. Okay. Right.
Yes, thank you.
Any other question? I think I'm going to finish before Yvonne than I was expecting to. I thought we would have more questions, but let's go.
No, that's okay. When you're done, I have one big question.
Tá, okay.
Okay, there's one question here that just came in by Katya.
Oh, thank you,
She's
Katja.
so she's asking where she can examine if she's an examiner at Cultura, if she only exams at
I lost you.
Cultura,
Could you?
or if she can exam uh, at a different
I lost.
location.
Okay.
She can outside the examiner here at Cultura.
Well, I'm very jealous about my speaking examiners because I have all the tough work to prepare them and train them, right? So, and because we have such a huge number of candidates, I usually have them only for myself. I believe the scenario should be very similar with Cultura Inglesa São Paulo, because if us with, I know, a little bit more than 2,700, 2,900 students, we have this enormous number. I can imagine São Paulo. So for you to become a speaking examiner trained by São Paulo, I guess you would have to be committed to São Paulo, unless you leave for some reason, and then you would have to, with your ID, be revalidated by another center. Right? But this is something that you have to come to an agreement with your coordinators and with the branch managers. I don't know exactly the hierarchy of this, but yeah, here in Salvador, no, my examiners are my examiners and they're all mine. But if you move, for example, if you are transferred to any part of the planet where Cambridge exams are being used, yes, once you've got an ID, you can revalidate your number, and you can be retrained by the local, the place where you're going to. Okay? You want to say hello?
I'm here.
Okay, right? Can I go on?
Sure.
Okay. So, well, I think that we have more positive aspects than negative aspects, but I've asked some of our teachers for their opinion, okay, their feedback. So, real people, okay? So, this is what Dudu says. Minha paixão por teaching speaking veio através do treino para speaking examiner. Será que nossos alunos sabem o que é testado? Na nossa mother tongue, não somos ensinados how to interrupt, how to add information, how to disagree. I think that these things happen naturally in our mother tongue. In classes, when we raise awareness to those things, right? Here in Salvador, it's very funny because sometimes we're talking and in the middle of the conversation, out of nowhere, somebody says, "What a nice color of your lipstick," or something like this, and then goes back to the talk where he was at and continues normally. So then this happens all the time, right? You're in the middle of something and you come with something that has nothing to do, and then you go back. So people have to know what is expected them according to Cambridge assessment. Another teacher said, evaluation has always been an area of interest to me, and I've done a couple of research on it. It's helped me professionally in many ways, especially in writing tests. One of the main drawbacks is the pay. So Ade is our team leader. She's a professor and in applied linguistics, and she loves designing tests. And by training us for these tests, it has helped her a lot. She's always talking about this, the different aspects of the test. So if you're into evaluation and assessment and this kind of thing, Cambridge is a very good lab to understand testing. And I think this was Dani, wasn't Ade. Costuma-se dizer que a melhor maneira de aprender algo é ensinando. Então, penso que avaliar outras pessoas possa me dar a condição de melhorar minha própria comunicação em inglês. Além disso, é importante em termos de satisfação pessoal e profissional. Right? Yes, if you're teaching, you learn a lot better than you just doing it alone, right?
There is one more question.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
before the thank you very much. So one of the questions is, do you have to be an invigilator before you become a speaking examiner, or it's totally disconnected?
Totally disconnected. Invigilator, this person, okay. Invigilator, the only thing he's going to do is be in the class for the reading, writing, and listening, and he runs the test. He needs to speak English because he's got the instructions. There's a script to follow, just like an actor and an actress that has to follow, memorize the script to say. The difference is that you read the script, and he has to cater for students and like for their needs in the exam room, uh, and avoid people cheating. So basically, it's that. So you need to speak English, but you don't have to be qualified or whatever. Okay. As for the speaking examiner, you have to be qualified. You've got to have experience. You have to be able to read a scale, analyze the scale, not fight the scale. In the beginning of us being, when we first started this process here in Salvador, and we had to analyze these scales, we would fight against the scale because of, remember I mentioned, because you have marks between 1 and 3, like 1.5 to 2.53. So it was difficult for us to understand. Why not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be a lot easier. So you have to be able to understand that and take for granted that that's the one, and that's what we have to follow. So they're completely different. You can be a speaking examiner and an invigilator if you want, but you don't have to be one to be the other, right? Okay.
Yes, and I have one more question. This time it's a question of my own.
I love
Uh,
questions.
One of the things that you mentioned is that there is an annual refresher in Fronter that you have to take, and then you get a pair of candidates, and then you examine them, and then you give
Right.
them according to the scale. And then if you get wrong, you do it again and do it again. So you have three chances.
Yeah.
I got very anxious. Only three chances per year. How can I practice to get better so that when I get to Fronter, I'm already a master? How can I get some extra practice? I need my practice. Is there any campus version?
Well, you've got, well, here in Salvador, what we do is we have the face-to-face training. We have lots of face-to-face trainings. We have the official one, the one that goes all day long, and you have the other ones that are faster. So it really depends on the experience of the teachers that you have and how much they can understand and take in before they actually do the fronter. So you can start from the face-to-face first and do fronter, and then go back to the retraining later on the year. Clear, Ivan?
Yes, yes. Okay, now I'm much calmer now. Thank you.
Okay. Right. And I guess I finished a little couple of minutes, 10 minutes before. So here am I, Jackie Saback from Cultura Inglesa, Bahia Paulista. And I found, if you're curious to read something very funny about becoming a speaking examiner, I came across this blog author called Kate Bayward, www.teachinghouse.com, and she gives examples of things that happen in the test, because it's so funny. You get to meet so many nice people, and sometimes you want to take them home with you because funny stuff you hear, like one of the examples that she wrote that I laugh a lot is, what did you do yesterday? I went to the shopping. Do you like going to the shopping? Yes, but only when I don't have to pay. So things like that. So check it out, because she writes in a fun way, and I had a good laugh with all the examples she gave, talking about writing about becoming a speaking examiner. Right? I hope I've been helpful, and I really hope that I have motivated you to become a speaking examiner and be part of a team, right? After all, the training thing, it's just once a year. So yeah, once a semester, one and one. So it's not that, it's a little, can be a little bit time consuming, but just All in all, I think that it's a fantastic experience to be an examiner, and it's, vamos combinar, é muito chique. Okay, so that's my email if you want to talk to me, Jackie Saback at Cultura Inglesa, Bahia. I'm always online, and thank you for listening. Thank you for registering for this webinar. And I guess I've already covered my New Year's resolution thing of doing something different. See you guys. Hope to meet you at one of these Lapsi conference soon. Okay? Beijo grande.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys. Thank you for attending. Bye-bye.